season started. Started the season. Premier League is back, ladies and gentlemen, and we are all collectively, as a nation, gassed about it, all throwing plastic chairs about. There's either one or the other. The term 21/22 has got everybody across England excited, unless you're Prince Andrew, in which those numbers are far too high. And fans are back in stadiums as well after an 18-month hiatus due to COVID-19, and they're set up and ready for what could be one of the closest Premier League seasons of the modern era. And unfortunately, because I'm a YouTuber who does football related things, it's now my job to predict everything. And it went so well last season, like nothing really even. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you my Premier League predictions for the 21/22 season. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, first of all, I am a Liverpool fan. Alright, now I'm gonna try and make sure my bias does not get in the way. And also, for an entrance point, I'm recording this on the 14th of August. Just actually after Liverpool won against Norwich in the Premier League, kind of halfway through the first game week of the season. And if there's signings made after that I don't talk about that do influence the season, then that's the reason why. We'll start from the bottom and then make our way up the Premier League table. And I said I wasn't going to let the first game of the season influence me too much. It's going to sound like I have. Norwich, 20th place. Residents of Norfolk, I apologise. I know it's already bad enough for you there. You don't need this from me as well. But despite winning the championship by a fairly comfortable margin last season, I do feel as though Norwich are going to go straight back down bottom. Part of that comes with the loss of Emi Buendia to Aston Villa, but they have brought in players that are pretty good as well. Billy Gilmore, of course, comes in on loan from Chelsea. I fear for them in terms of goal scoring. Even though Timu Pukki scored a solid and healthy amount of goals in the championship again last season, when he was moderately found out in the first campaign, he did stop scoring pretty swiftly. And obviously Norwich are coming off the back of a pretty unhealthy pre-season, a lot of COVID interruption. It's going to take them a little while to bed into the league, and when you're already up against it, that could be pretty crucial. They do play really nice and pretty football though from time to time when they can get a hold of the game. I just feel like they need a bit more control in midfield, and I really don't rate their centre-back partnership. In 19th, and it's another team that got promoted from the championship next, and I've got Watford. By no means am I saying Norwich are going to get like 6 points and Watford are going to get like 18. I think the relegation battle for pretty much everybody is going to go right down to the wire. Watford are not that far away from being good enough to stay up, in my opinion. They did, however, score the least of anyone out of the teams promoted from the championship last season. Now, I'm going to keep it real with you. I did not watch, like, the most amount of the championship that I ever have last season. But statistically, they clearly need someone who's going to come in and provide proven goals. You need that as a team getting promoted. You need someone who's going to get 12 or 13 goals in a campaign. Cucho Hernandez could be the man. He looks really, really quality. And obviously, Ismail Assar is a brilliant footballer too. And then it comes down to 18th spot. And this might surprise people. I've had, like, engagements with Southampton fans recently, and they reckon that they're in a safer spot than they were last season. But, like, as an outsider, and again, they're far more qualified to talk about their own club than me. And I look at Southampton, and I see a side that was actually top of the league at one stage in autumn. And look at the way it derailed so drastically to the point where at the end of the season, 2 wins from their final 3 was the only thing that stopped them finishing 17th in the league. Momentum throughout seasons can be a pretty important thing, and as the obvious elephant in the room, they've lost Danny Ings. They looked like they were lacking a lot of firepower, to me anyway, without Danny Ings in the side when he was injured. Adam Armstrong is a pretty solid striker. Is he Danny Ings? I'm just not entirely sure. I just look at their squad pound for pound, man for man. The lack of depth as well, to me, in this team, and it's just really uninspiring. They have improved at left back, but I don't know, they've probably gone backwards in terms of right back and certain other positions, so. And just above the relegation zone for me is going to be Newcastle. The bottom 3 last year were really bad, like so bad. Newcastle would have been firmly in there, but obviously the arrival of Joe Willock on loan changed their fortunes. I'm just not entirely sure he's going to have the same impact as he did at the end of the last campaign. They have, however, got Callum Wilson coming back. They need to keep him fit. If they do keep him fit throughout the season, he will ultimately score 10, 11, 12 goals. But why did you give Steve Bruce a new contract, for crying out loud? He should be working in Sports Direct. Just above them, another Brexit side, we've got Burnley. Honestly, these lot would have gone down about 6 seasons ago if it wasn't for Sean Dyche. It is just the Dyche factor at this point. There really is nothing else apart from probably their centre-back partnership and Chris Wood that I would suggest is good enough for them to stay in the Premier League. But once more, on a shoestring budget, they've done nothing to a pretty aging and generally pretty average starting 11 and squad. They've got limited depth. As soon as there's any injuries, they're dipping into the under-18s. Hello, have you got any youngsters? Not like that, I swear. And in 15th place is where we find the final of the teams promoted, and it's Brentford. Now, I know what you're thinking. Niran, you're an indie boy, and you like edgy football teams that play nice football and that the hipster will enjoy. And that is absolutely correct. If I was being unbiased, I would have put them 16th. But I'll put them 15th because I do legitimately have faith in them to stay up. And it's not just the Arsenal result, which was genuinely quite impressive. And I really like what they've done in the transfer window. Obviously, they've got a 31 goal scoring or something striker in Ivan Toney. But on top of that, they've now brought in a solid centre-back in the form of Christopher Ayer. An under the radar, but solid central midfielder and Nigerian man in Frank Onyenka. Fullbacks-wise, I like them. Rico Henry is class. And again, they have goals. I can't explain how important it is when you're fighting down at the basement battles of the Premier League, how crucial it is to have a consistent goal scorer or multiple. Now, we'll speed through the mid-table because it's extremely interchangeable. But in 14th, we've got Brighton, probably the most 14th place team in Premier League history. The XG merchants themselves, please just buy a consistent striker. Shane Duffy's back and he looked really solid in the first game of the season, so I don't think they're going to miss Ben White a huge amount, and they can reinvest that money. Reinvest it in a striker, again, please. In 13th, we've got Crystal Palace. Once again, another marauding mid-table side, really. Very interesting season, really, for them, because they have massively overhauled their squad, generally speaking, and obviously Roy Hodgson has been replaced by Arsenal legend Patrick Vieira at the helm of the club. There's going to be a really interesting experiment for me. Obviously, they've lost the likes of Patrick Van Arnholt, Andros Townsend, Joel Wards. I don't even know if he's got a contract technically. People like that could well be out of the door, and instead they're bringing in the likes of Mark Guehi from Swansea last season, the Championship, quality centre-back, Michael Olise of Reading, Joachim Anderson, who was at Fulham last year, not to mention, obviously, Zaha's Ebere Eze when he's back to full fitness. I'm just worried about Vieira and his managerial skills. But I think they've got a really good squad going into the year. So in 12th, and we've got Leeds, Beelzebul. Obviously, they were battered by United on the first day of the season, but I wouldn't read too much into that, to be honest. And without Calvin Phillips, who's pretty integral to the way they play, they were so open without him. I don't think they'll suffer from second season syndrome too badly, because again, they've got good players. Rafinha, Patrick Bamford moving forward a class. Defensively, they could do better, but Melier is a top quality goalkeeper. And in 11th, to round out the bottom half, we have got Wolverhampton Wanderers. And they're left with Bruno Lager, who is a very good manager. I guess hit and miss at Benfica, but when he was hit, he was very hit, like record-breaking managerially with Benfica hit. The problem really for Wolves, and the reason why I'm not putting them in the top 10, even though I think they can definitely challenge for it again, they've not made any signings this season, and that's not necessarily a bad thing all the time. When other teams around you are strengthening, and there are probably areas of the pitch that you know need addressing, that kind of is a problem. Then again, Raul Jimenez being back is probably like a new signing as well. And then we move on to that top 10, and in 10th place, we've got Aston Villa. Now, to say they've lost Jack Grealish, I think they've actually had a pretty alright transfer window for me. The likes of Emi Buendia coming in, Leon Bailey, Danny Ings from Southampton, Axel Tuanzebe I think is coming in as well. He might have already signed. For me, I'm just a little bit concerned as to how quickly they'll fuse together. Once the sides fuse together, you will see the better side of Aston Villa. It might just take a slow start. And in 9th, we've got another side in claret and blue with West Ham. Now, I would have put these below Aston Villa based off the fact they're in Europe this season, and I think that's going to be pretty problematic for them. Balancing and juggling that many games in one season when you're a mid-table side, technically speaking, is very, very difficult. So they're going to find that problematic. But then they had such a good pre-season with Antonio firing and Benrahma firing. I do still think they might need a little bit more depth, though. And then in 8th, we've got Arsenal. God forbid For crying out loud, boys. Every year, I want to predict these lot higher than they end up finishing. But I've seen a lie. I genuinely think this is the swan song of Mikel Arteta. It's not even a song. It's a mashed together arrangement of noises that have no harmony whatsoever. And I thought they would be classed. You know, the signings they've made have been pretty all right in this window. And they ended last season winning 5 from 5 right at the end. Like, their form was incredible. The one positive thing they do have, though, is when it gets to that crunch time in, like, well, first of all, like November and December, but then also if teams are still in European competitions in February and March, they don't have to deal with as much fixture congestion as the likes of a West Ham, as the likes of a Tottenham, but it's just clownery, and I've simply had enough. And in 7th place, otherwise known as a Conference League spot, Rafa Benitez's Everton. Carlo Ancelotti's a top quality manager in the same way that Rafa Benitez is, but I hadn't really seen enough in the transfer window, to be honest with you, to suggest that they were going to be better than where they were before. But in a weird turn of events, Andros Townsend and Damari Gray, I mean, maybe they could work for the system that Benitez wants to put together. It doesn't necessarily have to be the best players. If that's what Benitez wants to do and those are the most effective players at doing it, then it may well work. And I think people like Richarlison need to be a little bit more consistent too if he can step up his game further. They just need firepower to just not bottle things at stupid times. And they need to improve against smaller teams as well. Teams that like are relegation threatened, they need to actually put them to the sword. In 6th place, we've got Tottenham. This is the one area of the table that for me is quite weak. Arsenal are in complete disarray, and Everton haven't really improved personnel-wise from last season. I don't really see who else I can put here. This is obviously assuming they keep Harry Kane. If Harry Kane goes to Man City, these lot they're finishing 9th. Heung-min Son is tied down and at least moderately happy as a player can be whilst being contracted to Tottenham. Either way, the signings they have brought in, Romero and Hill, have been pretty good, to be honest with you. And then into 5th, on the precipice of Champions League football, I don't think it's going to surprise anybody who I put here, Leicester City. I just wish these lot had finished in the top 4 in the last 2 seasons, because I think they've missed the boat for this campaign. To be fair to them as well, they've also improved in the depth department too, because I think that was one problem. They just kept burning out because they just didn't have the personnel to keep chopping and changing like the top clubs do. And that's only going to improve with the likes of Ryan Bertrand coming in, Yannick Vestergaard, and also Patson Daka up front. The one problem for them defensively is that Wesley Fofana, who was so good last season, is going to miss the majority of this campaign. And then on to the top 4. Dear mother of God, this is hard. I would like to preface this by saying that I don't think there's going to be more than 12 points covering the entire top 4. Like, this is probably going to be one of the closest entire top 4s we have seen for, like, I don't know, 10 years or something. Because the quality of players and signings for these teams, apart from Liverpool, is incredible. Like, genuinely incredible. So it's so hard working out who's going to finish 4th. But I've broken it down and worked it out, and I'm going for Manchester United in 4th with an asterisk. The asterisk being if they signed a really quality DM, they'll finish 3rd. And I know what you're thinking. Niran, you're biased. You hate United. They brushed aside Leeds and looked really good. And looked really good without Sancho and Rashford. They did, however, slap Leeds last season, so you can't just read into it based off that alone. But I will not deny that they look genuinely better. Paul Pogba was incredible in that game. Has he been unlocked? Have they finally found the keys after 5 years behind the sofa? But what it comes down to for me is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's inability to cross the finish line. I just don't see how this man has not won a trophy yet with that team. And you can be like, oh, but he hasn't been back. Like, he's spent a lot of money now. I just don't think he's an upper echelon, absolute top quality manager. Like a Klopp, like a Guardiola. I don't see how you can argue that. When evaluating Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, you have to say, right, he's done really well to provide positivity to that football club for a start. But would a better manager, like a really elite manager, have won something by now? Yes. But I am only going to put my own side, Liverpool, in P3. I'm genuinely concerned about us a little bit this season. We've lost Gini Wijnaldum, which is a little bit of a hole. He wasn't performing to the highest of his ability at the end of last season. On the flip side, Virgil van Dijk is back, and having him plus any other fit centre-back of a senior level is going to be like multiple new signings. It's going to allow Fabinho to actually play at defensive mid again, Jordan Henderson to be back where he's meant to be in central midfield. Editing Niran here, I forgot to mention this really, but it doesn't help that Liverpool have the depth of a 15-metre swimming pool's shallow end, so we're going to have to keep players actually fit to finish here come the end of the season. So that brings us on to the top 2, and honestly, this is just as difficult. We've got Man City, financial and footballing powerhouses now, with the resources and just pure player quality, managerial quality, to beat anybody on any given day. unless it's in the Champions League. This squad is ridiculous. It's the most expensive ever assembled, now with the addition of Jack Grealish as well. And of course, they are the reigning champions and won the league last season by a very healthy margin. And then we've got Chelsea, the outsiders maybe, who've been revolutionised under Thomas Tuchel after Frank Lampard leaving last season. I mean, I hope he hasn't took all the credit for this team because I assembled it. Do you get me? Now, on a level, I'm clinically depressed. They may not be reigning Premier League champions, but they are reigning European champions, and they've just won the Super Cup as well. And this may well surprise you, but it's Man City that I'm going to put in second place for my Premier League prediction this season. Now, this is very bold from me, potentially. I've already said that these positions are going to be decided by singular points, goal difference potentially in the top four. For me, the only concern I have about City, I mean, they have the incredible depth in this squad, but what genuinely concerns me is left back and also their lack of striker. Again, as I said maybe before, I can't remember, but I think they would breeze the league if they signed Harry Kane. But without Harry Kane, I worry that they don't have that cutting edge in the final third, as stupid as that sounds, to break down teams that genuinely defend well against them to the point where all they can do is put balls into the box for someone who's about 5'4" tall. Now, this is Man City. They've got unbelievable talent with the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, but going strikerless can have its hindrances, and I think if they were to not have an option to bring on a striker at all, it would really be problematic for them during the course of the season. They did it for the majority of last season because Aguero was in and out of fitness, but everyone else wasn't as strong last season. Maybe they got away with it a little bit because Gabriel Jesus isn't good enough to do the job, in my opinion, which means that I think Chelsea are going to be your champions of the Premier League for the 21-22 season. I've got Chelsea just edging this because I think the actual tactical fluidity and tactical diversity they have in this side is huge for a start. Their depth is incredible. That's what's going to win you a league in this season, is squad management. Knowing you're in about 6 different competitions, but you've got 3 very capable players for every single area of the pitch. The one problem for Chelsea was they didn't score enough goals last season. They scored the least out of anyone in the top 4, potentially even the top 5 last year. But now with the addition of a £100 million man, Romelu Lukaku, although he's not guaranteed to do well, he didn't go quite as well at United as he would have hoped. He's a man in serious form with serious confidence who I think could score, I mean, a lot more than Timo Werner anyway. And not only that, they're coming off the back of winning the Champions League. Like, confidence must be at an all-time high. To them, they are better than every other team in Europe. That sort of momentum does take you forward and move forward into a next season. We did it as well by winning the Champions League and then winning the Premier League the next season. So that is my prediction for the Premier League for this campaign. I can't wait for a flipping Aston Villa to win the league. Let me know what you thought about them down in the comment section below though. Who do you think is going to win the league and who do you think is going to get relegated? Answer those 2 questions for me down there below. If you enjoyed this video though, feel free to slap a like on it and of course subscribe if you are new to the channel. You can follow me on social media. It is at @theofficialfng on Twitter and on Insta. But it's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a wonderful day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.